Hey, what's going on, guys? Ben Brewster here at triathletics.com. This video is about the Pec Doorway Stretch. Before we get into that, I definitely want to explain some of the kind of functional anatomy and the purpose behind this so that you understand exactly what you're trying to do. So there's two major muscles. We have the pec major, which is a large surface area muscle. It's primarily going to be responsible for horizontal adduction. So it basically attaches to the humerus and it rolls everything inward like this. We also have the pec minor, which attaches on the coracoid process of the scapula and attaches to the rib cage. What that's going to do is it's going to roll the scapula into anterior tilt. So if you have both of those tight, you're going to have anterior tilt and internal rotation. So that's when you see guys that kind of walk around, palms facing backwards, tilted forward. If you look from the side, Devin has this a little bit, but if you look from the side and the elbow is hanging behind the level of the front of the shoulder, so you see some guys that kind of hang out in this posture right here, that's definitely a sign that the scap is tilted forward and you might have some pec minor tightness going on. So we're going to be addressing this twofold. If you're watching this video, you've probably already seen the pec soft tissue work. That's extremely important. Definitely don't skimp on that before you get to this stretch. But after we've opened up the soft tissue, you have kind of a window of opportunity to make some permanent changes. And so these are where some of these stretches come into play. So what we're trying to do with some of these stretches is we're trying to get a stretch from the scapula. So what you can do this one of two ways. You can kind of screw up the stretch and yank into the front of your shoulder and let that shoulder roll forward and really chew up the anterior structures of the shoulder. Or you can let the scap retract around the rib cage, get a great stretch, still lengthening the attachment points of the pec, but you're going to do so without chewing up the front of your shoulder. So very, very simple stretch. Most of you have seen some sort of like doorway stretch before. So you're just going to want a wall, a doorway, squat rack, a pole, something to prop the arm against. To start, we're just going to go right at shoulder height, bent to 90 degrees. So Devin's going to find the doorway, and from here he's pretty much just going to lock this in place, and he's going to basically position his body in line with the elbow. From here, all he has to do is begin to rotate his torso away from the arm. So the arm is locked in place, and he's just rotating his torso. As he does that, he's bringing his scap into full retraction. So he's using the torso as the driver of the movement, but what you should really feel like is your scapula is being pulled around the rib cage, and at the end of the movement, it's basically your shoulder blades are fully pinched together, but you should feel like there's a large stretch through your pec. So you're gonna have to play around a little bit with kind of the vectors of the stretch. So he might feel a little bit more if he goes sternum up and kind of screws his way into that position. I know for me, that's where I feel the most. You might feel a little bit more if you drive the rib cage down and turn. You might feel a little bit more if you kind of lean into the stretch, or more if you turn away. So you're gonna have to play with some of those exact angles to see what gives you the best stretch. You should not feel this in the front of the shoulder. If you feel it in the front of the shoulder, what you're likely doing is starting to round forward into that anterior shoulder. So just be very aware to set the shoulder in place and get that motion from the actual shoulder blade around the rib cage. So that's primarily gonna hit pec major. It's still gonna hit pec minor a little bit, but one modification we can make from here, once you've done that first version, is to just elevate the arm a little bit. So that's going to hit the pec minor more as we elevate the elbow. You have to be a little bit more careful with this one. You have a slightly higher chance of kind of impinging on those shoulder structures. So as you do this, just be gentle as you go into that one. Same thing, turn away from it, play around with the angle until you really feel that band of tissue kind of put on tension. In both of these, once you hit that point of tension, you feel like it's a good stretch, it's a deep stretch, we can actually do something a little bit better from there. So we can add a contract, relax component to it. So let's go back to the first version. So let's say he finds a way into that good deep stretch. From here, we can actively drive that arm into the wall. So you can horizontally adduct into the wall, activate, try to shorten those muscles in that lengthened position. They're not going to shorten, but it's the intent that matters. So we're driving into an active contract position. From there, he can go through a relaxed cycle. So he can relax, sink a little bit deeper into the stretch, contract again, relax, sink a little bit deeper. You can also play with retracting, so trying to retract the scapula, contract your back, and try to pull yourself further into the movement. That one's pretty tough because you're already in maximum retraction, so it's a little bit difficult. You're really going to feel that cramp up, but you can play with that too. But those are just some of the options you can play with. If you don't like this stretch, if you don't feel like it's doing the right thing, we do have a different variation called the pec myofascial floor stretch, so we'll make sure to link that one down below. If this doesn't feel quite right for some reason, definitely check with your coach, and we'll hook you up with that different variation.